This squirmy, cute dog here is Sophie, who wants to be elsewhere. Now, one of Sophie's favorite perches is to be up on top of the couch, and I explained to her guardian that sitting higher than humans actually can confuse a dog into thinking that they have more authority than they actually do. You know about this little growth on the side of her neck?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So basically, Sophie, I think the reason Sophie is the chief barker is because she thinks that she is in charge of her humans. And as a result, I think that she thinks that it's her job to ward off anyone who might be going to steal her human or take advantage of her human. I think in her mind, she thinks she's doing her human a service. Her human would prefer that she does not bark. And so we spent a lot of time during the session going over rules and structure. Now, she's doing something right now. She got back up here on the couch, and that's okay for now. But one of the rules I suggest is no furniture except for the bed, and the bed only with an invitation and only for good behavior. The furniture should only be with an invitation, a minimum of 30 days of no furniture, but really as long as the barking problem is still going on, no furniture except for the bed. Once the barking is dissipated, then if the guardian would like to invite Sophie up, the guardian is able to invite her up for a one-time exception, and that's only for good behavior. So if she invited her up and she started barking, she has to immediately get down. If she invited her up and it's a commercial and she gets down to go get a drink of water, not that dogs wait for commercials, but when she came back, she would need permission to get back up. So this is going to be, the higher dog sits, the more rank they have. And we're not going to allow this at all until we've had at least a couple months without the nuisance barking. And then if the guardian would like to, you can. I would probably make this permanent. Other rules would be not being allowed within 7 feet of anyone who's eating, especially the guardian. Having to sit before I let it go in or out of a door. Not letting the dog run up and down the stairs or down a hallway or through a doorway in front of me. And having to wait to eat after the human eats first. We didn't go over that, but I'm going to go over that right now. For dogs, they eat in the order of their rank. When we let dogs eat before we eat, we're telling them that they have more authority than we do. So what I do is, let's say you're going out to brunch with your friends, and you're going to feed your dog first. Well, just grab a couple chips or a cracker or a carrot or something and eat something that takes 5 or more bites, then give your dog permission to eat. Now, if she goes over and sniffs the bowl and walks away, pick up the bowl, dump it, put the empty bowl back down. A lot of people pick the whole bowl up and put it on the counter. That's looked at as taking away the opportunity for food. If we dump the bowl and put the empty bowl back down, the dog sees the bowl is empty all day long. I walk by, it's empty. I get water, it's empty. I walk by it again, it's empty. There's food. When there is food, then it becomes an exception. But if we encourage the dog to eat, then we put them in the driver's seat. So I put the food down and they have 3 minutes to eat. But if it's anytime they move away from the bowl, I pick up the bowl, dump it, and put the bowl back down. Eventually, hunger becomes your ally. And dogs will eat. I've had dogs that will go for 3 or 4 days without eating, but eventually hunger kicks in. They're like, I'm happy to eat that stuff. Now, I would recommend, I gave the guardian a card to go to the Green Spot, which is one of my favorite stores here in town. It's the only store in town that's owned by people who studied animal nutrition as a college degree. And because Sophie has a lot of health issues, I would really like to have her guardian coordinate a meeting between the owners, Jess or Whitney, who are super awesome at the Green Spot, and the people that her medical team that she's working with, to see if we can find a food that's going to be more appealing to her, that she's going to want to eat. Also, we'd like to find a higher value treat item that we can use for the focus exercise that we did earlier, and different things, if we need to do some counter conditioning. Peanut butter works. We can, like I said, freeze it. I would freeze it in. I mean, I've seen people do it actually with freeze it in celery, and then they break the celery off, and you have kind of this like groove of peanut butter that you can use and have the dog licking it while it's looking at something for counter conditioning. Okay, so those are the rules that we incorporated. We also want to look for opportunities to delay gratification. We just got done doing an exercise with the kennel. When the guardian comes home, she's excited to get out of the kennel. As soon as and she's barking. As soon as we open the kennel, she rushes out and races around. Well, excited is not necessarily happy. Excited is an unbalanced state of mind. So we went through an exercise where the guardian is not going to let her out of the kennel until she is calm. Now, we were a little bit pinched for time, so I'm going to describe what I normally would do. Normally what I do is I open the door, block it with my shins, and as soon as the dog settles down a little bit, I take just a 2-inch or 3-inch step backwards. I have your feet sideways because it's just a little dog kennel. If she tries to come forward, I hiss and march forward to block again in the same time. The guardian was hissing, waiting 2 seconds, then moving forward. And that's going to give her the opportunity eventually to come out. Once she starts doing it, she'll do it more and more. So make sure you're moving in unison at the hiss and marching forward. Eventually, and then when she's settled, take another step back, wait. Just a quarter of a second. She stays there, take another step back, wait. At first, don't be moved further than maybe a foot away from the kennel door, but as you practice this a week or so, then maybe it can be 2 feet and then 3 feet, and eventually it can be out of the room and she'll stay in the kennel. But don't push too far too fast. What I typically do is I take a couple feet when I'm about a foot away, then I stand there and I wait. As soon as the dog sits down with doing it voluntarily, then I take a big step backwards, left, right only. And then I wait for the dog to lay down. Only when it lays down do I give it permission to come out. I had one dog, it took an hour and 45 minutes before it lay down. It was protesting, it was whining, it was barking, it was doing all this. It's important the first few times that you do it that you outlast the dog. We didn't do the full exercise there, so I'd like the guardian to do this at a time where she's going to be here for quite a while. Now we can put the dog in a position to succeed by taking it out for a long walk, getting a lot of exercise throughout the day, so when we do this, it doesn't have an abundance of energy to fight us. We're not telling it to lay down, we're not to do anything, we're just going to reward it. As soon as it lays down, I hold my hand open with a Cheerio or whatever the high value treat is and say the word come. And so what I'm saying is when the dog surrenders and they signify that they surrender by laying down on their own, then as soon as they do that, then they get permission to come out. After you do this enough, the dog will start laying down faster and faster. That's when I start moving and getting the distance further and further away. Eventually, I got to the point where I could open the kennel door and walk on the other side of the house and do a whole bunch of stuff and make all sorts of crazy noises, and half an hour just yell release, and then the dog would come out. But there's nothing but air between the dog and the exit, and so now the dog is the one developing control, and that's one of the things that Sophie really needs to learn to do is develop self-control and mind the authority of her human waiting for permission rather than just taking it and running out and barking and being all excited. Speaking of excited, I'd like the guardian to make sure that she does not pet Sophie when she is in an excited frame of mind. This includes when we come home and the dog is all excited to see us. Excited is not happy. When we have guests that come over, same rule. Please don't pet the dog. Now, a lot of people will say, but I have dogs and I know how to do this and this worked for my dog. Tell them you paid me a lot of money. When people hear that you paid money, they're less likely to mess with your investment. Hey, I paid a behaviorist quite a bit of money and I'm seeing really good results. One of the things he said is we can't pet the dog unless it's completely calm. And then if everyone in the family starts doing that, all the guests and visitors come over, after a while the dog will start calming down faster and faster. As soon as it sits down, we want to pet it under its chin and say the word sit. And that's actually a nice thing that the guardian could do is maybe have these high-value treats, something better than the Cheerios. When we have guests that come over, we're going to have her on a leash to begin with. Before we open the door, we're going to put her on a leash. The more the dog moves around, the more worked up she's going to get. Eventually, as the rules and boundaries kick in and the guardian is enforcing these consistently, the dog is going to have less of a reaction when people do come in. But for now, we're just going to keep that leash short and not allow her to move away. And then basically what we could do is give the guest a high value treat and then basically have the guest ask the dog to sit. As soon as she sits, we give her the treat, say the word sit. If that happens enough, then she starts to adopt a new behavior. When guest comes over and I sit in front of the guest, I get a really tasty treat. I like it when guests come over. I'm pretty sure that right now when guests come over, she's saying, get out, leave, this is my house, I didn't invite you, I don't want you here, why are you not listening? I'm going to continue to bark because you're not paying attention to me. So that goes on and on and on. So a lot of times just shortening that leash will stop dogs from barking. Carefully with your finger.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do is have a high value treat, something that has a strong aroma. Dogs can't sniff and bark at the same time. Now if you do this, do not give the treat to the dog. Just use this to redirect them. That won't work for too long, so that would be fine at special occasions. The counter conditioning technique that I went over will really help. Now, if she is very reactive to other dogs, I'm thinking from what I've seen in this situation, once the guardian has spent a couple weeks enforcing the rules and boundaries, she's going to notice a huge drop in the dog's barking and being able to disagree with the dog with the escalating consequences we went over and get the dog to respond. Now, if the guardian forgot how to do what the escalating consequences are, how to do the counter conditioning exercise, if you go to doggoneproblems.com, click on Dog Training Tips. On the left side of the page, there'll be a box right here, and you can type in search terms. I do counter conditioning is all one word. I also have escalating consequences, focus exercise we did a video on, but there's a bunch of others that you can watch as well. So as well as other dog training tips. You might want to just type in barking. There might be some other tips and suggestions I forgot to cover here that are included there. But really, for a lot of dogs with Sophie's sort of problem, it's a lack of rules and structure that has got them under the misconception that they have the same authority or are responsible for their humans, and they're barking out of a way of trying to protect and ward off those that they think might be trying to take the humans or take advantage of the humans. Remember, I want the guardian to not walk around Sophie. For dogs, the more energy we spend has a direct correlation to where they see things. If I'm a dog and I tell another dog to do something and it doesn't do it, and I stand up, I'm burning energy to say, this is so important to me, I'm willing to burn energy to say that I'm doing it. Now, in a different context, if the dog's in my way and I walk around the dog, I'm using extra energy to defer away from the dog. That reinforces the dog thinking that it has more authority than we do. So as you're walking around, if the dog's in your way, just walk through the dog. The dog needs to learn to defer and get out of the human's way. I'd also like the guardian to get in a habit of following through consistently. If we tell the dog to sit and the dog does not sit, get up and follow the dog. If the dog walks around a table or something, I move chairs or move something to block it from going in circles. Eventually it'll go behind a door. When it does, close the door behind you. Eventually she's going to find herself cornered. When she does, then I say the order in a very assertive manner, sit. And as soon as she sits, I turn and walk away. She has to understand that when I tell you to do something, I'm willing to stop what I'm doing and follow through, and I'm going to burn the energy to follow you, to let you know that I mean business. We also want to avoid repeating the command word. When we went to go put her in the kennel, the guardian said kennel 4 times in the course of about 7 seconds. And one time the dog was already walking in there. So if the dog's already going to do it, let them do it first. Then once they're in the kennel, give the treat and say the word kennel the second the treat touches the lips. This makes it more of a positive association. Speaking of positive association, I want the guardian to start practicing my petting with a purpose philosophy, which means that we do not pet the dog at all under any circumstances if it demands attention by jumping up on us, scratching at us, and certainly not for barking for her. Instead, we're going to give her counter order. Tell her to sit. When she sits, we're going to pet her under her chin and just say the word sit. Not good dog, not good sit, not Sophie sit, just sit. When she lays down, we're going to pet her and say chill. And that's passive training. So anything that Sophie does that's a desired behavior, we're going to pet her and reward her for doing that. After a while, she's going to come and start prepaying for attention by sitting in front of you and saying, look, I'm sitting, can you hook me up with some attention? And we will, as much as we can. But for passive training, every time she comes to you, pet her and say come. Every time she lays down on her own, pet her and say chill. Every time she does anything that you like, pet her and mark it with a specific command word. Probably a good idea for the guardian to come up with a list of consistent commands. I've heard some variations of, instead of saying come here, over here, here's Sophie and Sophie, just always say the word come. Always say the word sit, or whatever they are. The more words we speak, the harder it is for dogs to understand us. Most people speak between 500 and 10,000 words a day. Dogs don't speak at all. So if they've got to suddenly pull out a word, it's much easier if they only have a pool of 10 words to listen for rather than 70. And most dogs have 7 command words for every command action and 10 commands that they know. That's just a lot to memorize. Puts the dog in a position to fail. Other things we can do, if we're going to have guests come over, we can exercise Sophie ahead of time. I don't know, I forgot to go over this with the guardian, but if she goes to doggy daycare or can go to doggy daycare, and we're going to have guests come over for dinner, send her to doggy daycare all day. Dogs sleep 17 hours a day on average. That means there's only 6 hours a day that they're awake. So if we take the dog to doggy daycare and they're there for 8 hours, they're not sleeping there very much. They come home, they are tired. I would bark at you, but I gotta sleep really quick. So I call this, again, putting the dog in position to succeed. When we're out on walks, until we have the focus exercise down, we want to try to walk at times of the day where we're not going to see dogs. Dogs get better at anything they do, including barking and nuisance barking like this. So if we can walk at a time of the day where we're not going to see our neighbors as much, or go to a place where we're not going to see as many people, that gets her we get her out of the habit of barking so much. Some dogs bark so much they don't even think about it anymore. They bark at everything. If we do see a dog coming, turn around and walk around a tree or a shrub or something, especially if you can do it before the dog sees it. Sometimes you can head the problem off at the pass before it actually becomes a problem. Now, one of the things that I do is when I'm walking a dog, if I know I have to do this sort of thing, is I practice having the dog turn. So if I have the dog walking on my left side, every once in a while, and there's no dogs, no other reasons around, I have the high value treat, and I start to turn. And as soon as the dog turns, I pop the treat in their mouth and say the word turn, or you, or whatever you want to say. And then you're basically turning your whole body away, and then you're walking 2 or 3 steps the other direction, the way you just came from. Then we pull out another treat and do another U-turn and say turn. So if we do this at times when the dog does not have anything around that it wants to react to, then when you do see a dog in the distance before your dog comes and you turn, it's just a natural part of the walk that you normally do for no apparent reason as far as the dog is concerned. But make sure you do it before the dog sees the other dog. Once she sees it, you have to increase the distance or move her in such a position where she can't see it. Now, if she continues to be reactive to other dogs, which is a little bit different than barking, the guardian might want to take advantage of the counter conditioning classes we're going to do in July, where we actually desensitize the dog so they no longer bark or feel another dog as a threat. I don't think she thinks the dogs are a threat. I think she thinks that she needs to protect her humans from them, not necessarily protect, but ward off the other dogs so they don't steal her human. So I really think the rules and structure are really going to go a long ways towards it. Making sure you're eating before will really also matter, because for dogs, eating is a very important activity. All right, the Guardian is shifting a little bit, which means I'm probably talking a little bit too long. So I'm going to wrap this up here in a second. But if the Guardian has any questions, please call me or text me. Texting is preferred. I don't care if it's 6 months from now or 6 years from now. I'm here to support you, and usually I can help you with a quick phone call. All right, that's the roadmap to success for Sophie. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.